But on the flip side of that, Zach Benson gets his first goal as an NHL player, had a pretty good game tonight. One of the Sabres' better forwards tonight. I don't want to gloat. I don't want to, I was raised to be a good winner, but he was plus 285, by the way, for an anytime goal scorer tonight. So cha-ching on that one. But
well, I'm glad you put your money where your mouth was there.
Yes.
As a good teammate, I had to pump your tires on Twitter a little bit, and I knew you wouldn't brag yourself, so I had to share that you did text me about 15 minutes before he scored saying Zach Benson's going to score tonight. And sure enough, he's been around the net. He's been staring down. He's been staring down chances. And actually, Kris, this was the one thing that was starting to give me a little bit of pause in the last few games about keeping him around. Is he squeezing the stick a little bit, looking for that first one? Is the goal scoring, the confidence to finish? Because we saw he had that one chance, maybe it was against Winnipeg or Chicago, one of the last two games where he passed it off at the last second and he could have shot. And I'm thinking, is he starting to second guess himself as a scorer at this level? And maybe that year of dominating junior would have, a pretty big benefit. Then he scores like that. You kidding me? I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of concern about confidence. And the word guts was thrown around by Don Granato. I mean, that was, for your first NHL goal to go between the legs in tight like that, that was pretty crazy. And it was the necessary play. It was the necessary move. He was not scoring on the back end.
No,
he was going to get shut down, and he got the goalie to bite hard because it felt like that was his only move. And then he pulls that off. And that is, Don Granato said, we talked about it last week. We recorded on Thursday, and that was the day that Don Granato said, these 3 games will be big. If that is the case, he could not have done a whole lot more than he did in these 3 games. An assist against Winnipeg, an assist against Chicago, and the goal in that fashion. And he was on the ice late. He was on the ice in overtime, unlike we saw with Matt Savoy in his game where he was pulled off. And even in some other games where they've limited Benson's third period ice time, not tonight. He looked like one of their best forwards, and he's somebody that is going to make the team better, right? This is what we talked about at the end of training camp. He is making the team better. He's giving them a chance. He's helping them not win tonight because they didn't win, but he is helping them. He is contributing to the offense. He's contributing all over the ice. So he made a pretty loud statement about wanting to stick around. I just love the pressure element of it. Like Don Granato, I think probably was intentional about saying these 3 games will be big. Raise the stakes for him a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Let him hear that and let him say, okay, and then let him respond. And so here he is in his last game before the decision has to be made. And he goes and tries to pull off that move, a move that could get you, if you're in your head and you're worried as an NHLer at 18, that could get you stapled to the bench by some coaches, right? If it doesn't work. Don Granato's not really that type of coach, but to pull it off, that was there was some pressure there, and he just hasn't felt pressure this whole time.
I've loved him lately. A couple things, I guess. You mentioned, like, is he gripping the stick or not? Like, kind of, you were questioning that, like waiting for him to kind of get that first one on the board. I don't think that he's the type of kid that feels pressure like that. I've never gotten the sense from him that he would get rattled that way, just because he's always out there playing his game and he knows that he's going to get an opportunity. I just think that's his mentality. And you can see it. He's fearless in the way that he plays. I think he knew himself. I felt it coming just watching the games. I'm sure he felt it also. We talked about young players. I think of Steven Stamkos going way back when he came into the league at 18. And I think Melrose was his coach at the time, and they sat him, they put him up in the press box. And you and I talked about this in preseason training camp. It's like classroom session. They did it with Peterka later in the year last year. Take him off the ice, put him up top, have him watch, process, come back down, and they're better players. I think that's what happened with Benson when he was hurt, because he's been excellent since he's come back his past couple of games. That play that he made on the Dahlin goal, that was Chicago, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
It was that play I think I texted you during the game and I was like, oh, I think he's staying.
Right.
Like for me, I think that's kind of when, and I know it's one play, but it wasn't the only play that he's made this year that made an impression, because it wasn't just the pass to get the assist. It was that sequence leading up to what ultimately was a primary assist on that play. I think it was primary. So for me, I'm not saying he's staying all year, but I think it's safe to say he's going to play the next game. He's going to, the meter's going to start running on the contract.
Well, I'm glad you brought that point up because, yes, this is a line in the sand, right? You burn the year of the entry-level contract, and so there is a decision. This is a decision point, and there is something that changes if he plays the next game. It is also not the end of the world if he goes back later. If he hits a wall at some point and needs to go back later, that you burned a year of the entry-level contract. It's not. In fact, in some cases, it can turn out to be a decent thing. You know, you get him to RFA status earlier. You can, if he's the player you think he is, you want to get him locked up, you know, sooner. And so with how you stagger contracts, I wouldn't be panicked about burning a year of the entry-level contract, even if he doesn't stay the whole year. And I understand that this is a decision point. So it's not to downplay that part of it, but just to let, you know, remind people that he can go back later and it won't have been a waste. You know, this is all good for his development. And you make a great point about the way he plays probably did contribute to him not pressing and not worrying about the goal, because I think a lot of players in his spot, 18, 19, 20, these elite offensive players who are jumping into the NHL, and they've always been elite offensive players, and that's how they make their impression. That's what they're worried about, scoring. Zach Benson probably doesn't feel as much pressure because he knows he's contributing in other ways. He knows he's doing other things that are helping create offense, helping, you know, break the puck out of the zone, helping turn the puck over at times, or keep the forecheck going in the offensive zone. So there's a confidence about him in that way where he knows he doesn't need to put the puck in the back of the net all the time to be a positive driver for the team. And that's different than a lot of players that age, I feel like, that are at this level. So that's a great sign. And he has been really, the only time he looked like he was a bit off was right before he came out of the lineup with the injury. And now I'm thinking he was hurting, right? He was playing through and having a tough time playing through something. Not that I didn't think he was hurt before, but you realize he must have been in quite a bit of pain given the amount of time he missed and the jump in his game from, I'd say, the game and a half to 2 games before he came out of the lineup to now. It's been great. So the time up top, I'm sure, helped, right? To watch the game and sit back, but he's fresh now and he's healthy again. And when he's healthy, that's going to be a challenge at 18, playing through injury, playing through the bumps and bruises. You don't always get to take, you know, a couple weeks off with every nick, who knows how significant this one was, but it feels to me it must have been pretty significant because he's taken a big jump after, you know, getting some time to heal up.
Play such an honest game. You know, that's kind of part of the background for me, thinking that I don't think he's a kid that would grip the stick just because he just plays such an honest game. He's hustling out there. I just love his pursuit of the puck. I mean, it's a series of small plays that he's made since day one that lead me to believe that, well, first of all, I don't want to oversell it, but he's been one of the better players on the team lately. Okay. You have a team now that iced a roster tonight with 11 forwards. Now it's not a question of, is he going to stick around? It's, are they even going to send him to World Juniors?
Right.
Honestly. And again, it's only one goal that he scored, but it's not about the points. It's about the contribution. It's about the fact that he's on a line with Middlestat Peterka, who's really going pretty well, I would say. So I don't know, man. I wanted to kind of put that baby to bed. I think it's pretty clear now. I think someone asked Granato tonight, which I don't know if that's the right time to ask him. Like, he's processing a loss of what happened. Is like, is he going to play like a 10th game? I don't expect Don to answer the question there, but I think it's an obvious answer. And I just want to be clear on that. You're with me on that.
Yeah, 100%. I've thought it. These 3 games cemented it, and I think they were wise to not put it in ink before these 3 games because it was a long layoff, and you wanted to see how he responded to the time up top and everything we talked about. How could he have responded much better than he did?
I love
These
that you
last 3
mentioned
games?
raise the stakes because I think that's exactly what he did in retrospect.
It
I
felt
wasn't
like
thinking about
that.
that.
Don
Yeah, yeah.
Granato's pretty intentional about, what he says, and is very, has a great track record developing players. And so he likes to find these different pressure moments or these different ways to, create pressure. And that felt like, a moment of honesty. Don Granato's a pretty honest guy. He's pretty upfront about, what he's thinking. But the byproduct was some pressure for Zach Benson on his first long NHL road trip. That's another part of this, right? He's going on the road for the first time. He's going to have some off days. How's he going to handle himself? And he was ready to play all 3 games. Probably had the best outside of Rasmus Dahlin. He might have been their best player on the road trip.
That's saying something. Again, 18 years old, unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, now I think the conversation is going to shift to World Juniors. Again, I mean, how do you go, like, if you have 11 forwards right now that you deem worthy of playing in the NHL, and then you're going to take one away to send them to an under 20 tournament?
Right. I at
I
this
don't
moment, if the
know.
tournament were next week, if the camp were next week, or it's coming up, it's in a couple weeks, but
Yeah,
there's still some time. But if it were next week, I don't know that you can take them off your roster to go do that. I mean, it's a good development opportunity, but what better development opportunity than playing in the NHL and playing well in the NHL like he is. So I don't know.
I want to say how I feel in the morning, because I'm the guy that's always a proponent of sending the kids, let them be kids, let them go be leaders and play for their country and all that stuff, especially if you haven't done it before. And, am I riding a high of him just scoring this gem of a goal? But also, it's not just the goal. I keep saying that, I have to remind myself that it's not a high, it's not a buzz.
It's
So I don't know.
steady.
I want to
It's
keep thinking
steady and
about
it's
that. It
constant.
is.
And the
Yeah.
good thing is they don't have to decide about that for a little while. A lot's going to happen between now and when they have to decide that. And that could be another chance if he's starting to hit another little bit of a lull to say, okay, this will be not sitting up in the press box, but in a sense, taking a drop down, almost like sending a guy to the minors to recollect himself. If they feel like he needs that, it's perfect because it's not a punishment, right? He's getting to
Mhm.
go play for his country. He's getting to go play at the World Juniors, probably link up with some of his old junior teammates who I think will be old junior teammates now. They won't be current junior teammates.